Alright, in our last episode we talked about the first 3 stages. Now this one's going to be really interesting because we're going to get into the stages which are more common for modern America and other countries as well in the first world. So let's start off with stage blue. If stage purple emerges out of groups of beige people grouping in tribes through communication, then stage blue is a group of red people grouping in communities through control. Stage blue societies wielded unprecedented global power in the ancient world through the combined efforts of evolving stage red individuals. And these stage blue forces are still prevalent in much of the world, although its influence is waning. It is one of the most common stages because the leaders of society have long ago evolved past stage red, and they make a point to indoctrinate the community with what is marketed as the ideal truth. A lot of fundamentalist religions and ideologies operate under this modus operandi, as do authoritarian governments. Like purple, they too vilify their enemies, but instead do it from a place of righteous indignation. They try to justify what they're doing. And they claim moral authority. They truly believe that they're doing society a favor in vanquishing those who don't co-align. Unlike purple, the enemy isn't other tribes and clans, but rather the enemy is other ideologies. Again, we can't really judge them because their strict moral codes, their dogmatic approach to rules and regulations, and their obsession with naive ideals was a huge step up from stage red egocentrism. At least with stage blue, the community of various tribes or families is working together, and they acknowledge and manifest the benefits of a unified community. They at least make a naive attempt at morality. Within blue, they begin to see all inner fighting as an issue. This is unlike red, where inner fighting within one's population was business as usual. There are plenty of stage blue companies which hold firm rules of conduct to be strictly enforced. In Seth Godin's book, Tribes, he refers to people who think outside of the box in these types of companies affectionately as heretics. These heretics, he argues, are completely necessary to help the company evolve in today's changing world. In the context of spiral dynamics, one might analyze this sentiment as that we as a modern society are evolving past blue, and the only way to make real progress is to transcend the narrow rules and guidelines which characterize stage blue's populace. Contrary to what you may think, those at the tops of worldly religious hierarchies are in stage orange, the next stage, rather than stage blue. This is because even though they promote stage blue behavior, they themselves don't adhere to it in the slightest manner. All too often they serve as poor examples of their own teachings for all when exposed. The well-established subjects of math, science, history, and English essentially haven't changed in over a century. Sure, we use graphing calculators instead of rulers and compasses, we have keyboards and touch screens instead of pencils, and we have projector screens instead of chalkboards, but the core principles of the subjects are the same. For stage blue, mathematics isn't about finding new techniques and solutions for unsolved problems, but instead it is about memorizing specific ways to solve equations and showing one's work to prove that one didn't use some different unapproved method. Blue English is more or less about reading one of the approved books and then writing essays on them. The papers are marked for their grammar, graded, and then are quickly thrown away and discarded after the semester due to the fact that almost all of these papers contain the same useless, unoriginal, and uninspired content. These school systems don't even bother to suggest the idea that the standards of English set decades or even centuries ago are constantly changing. Stage blue sounds negative, but still it is far superior to the chaotic stage red style of education. The clearly limiting dogmas of stage blue are transcended with stage orange, and far more effective strategies of personal and industrial prosperity are fully implemented. Stage orange people are much like red in that the level of thinking is inherently selfish, but they're far more systematic and scientific about their paths of acquisition. Statistics are their guide. The number of dollars in the bank account, the sales rates, and all forms of measurable materialistic success are strived for with a strategic approach. Stage orange is quite a dangerous stage because it's the first stage where the approach is logical and highly methodical, yet lacking true spiritual guidance. The spirituality of stage blue is naive and at odds with reality, which doesn't translate well to orange. They overcompensate by throwing it away quite often. Orange people are very materialistic and often fail to understand the ultimately unfulfilling nature of material things. They allow themselves to get blinded by greed and clever social manipulation. Stage orange is not necessarily just about business and economic expansion. In general, members of this stage are likely to spend a lot of time focusing on their personal image and are obsessed with things like having fancy, expensive clothing, a high IQ score, political success, a large house, kids with good grades, lots of money, and expensive cars, along with countless other shallow achievements. This is also how they judge other people. Plenty of people are in stage orange who don't have any of these things, and as a result, they're miserable. The pleasures of orange success feel great, but only temporarily. The superficial and hollow nature of orange success is ultimately unfulfilling and necessitates further personal growth. Orange likely existed here and there throughout history, but it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that stage orange began to really define Western culture. If one wishes to transcend this stage, one must realize that ruthless pragmatism is ultimately unsustainable without environmental awareness. Some stage orange people have certain green inclinations, such as recycling, but they aren't true advocates for these causes and participate out of social obligation or self-interest in appearing environmentally aware. This is not the same as living a lifestyle consistent with Green's values, which we'll get into next. Stage Green's representatives are deeply bothered by the wasteful practices of Stage Orange. They realize that, if left unchecked, orange will eventually overpollute, overharvest, and overwhelm the Earth's ecosystem. While Orange's members are good at creating temporary results, in the long run, these results are unsustainable and result in inequality among its citizens. Higher values such as world peace, environmental awareness, kindness to animals, and human equality are often obsessively promoted. Stage red, blue, and orange are seen as major issues for the world to Stage Green. Stage yellow, the next stage, might be seen as ignorant to Stage Green because it seems like they don't take Stage Green's initiatives seriously enough. Stage Green's people are too often self-righteous with their causes and they're very impractical in achieving their ideals. Stage Green's community are often referred to as hippies and sometimes conspiracy theorists or social justice warriors. They would rather do things like writing poetry, smoking weed, acting as keyboard warriors online, or taking yoga classes instead of engaging in the traditionally materialistic pursuits or in accepting the world as it is. So it's good, but it's also a little bit misguided. Fear lingers in the mind of Stage Green individuals, and many of them fear that if they don't actively engage those who don't acknowledge their cause, the world will become filled with doom. Most companies are centered around the values of Stage Orange, but ever since maybe the 1960s, Stage Green companies too have sprung up. And these green companies are characterized by having eco-friendly practices and use green themes to sell products, such as claiming them to be environmentally aware or to donate a percentage of profits to charity. They may influence other like-minded people in Stage Green, but even those who respectfully disagree with their lofty ideals are often ridiculed, shut out, and are sometimes snobbishly spoken down upon. The key to transcending Stage Green is to realize that the worldviews of other stages in the spiral are natural parts of the whole. Rather than verbally attacking and shunning those who don't respect the same ideals, there are better approaches which aren't so misguided. Issues are not so clear-cut as Stage Green members would like to think. They have their hearts in the right place, and the worldview is a very important step towards true world synergy, even if they are a bit too overzealous and assumptive. A lot of people still have a lot of personal development to go before they can even get out of orange, so green is a good goal for many people who are still a little bit selfish, unspiritual, and authoritarian. In this video, we finished Tier 1 of Spiral Dynamics, and in our next one, we'll get into the really advanced stages in Tier 2. Thanks for following.